Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for another Creative Mornings. Our theme this month is surreal. Every time I attend a Creative Mornings, this is kind of a surreal experience for me, where I wouldn't imagine sharing the space with a ton of strangers and now community once a month before heading into work. This month in particular, we're really excited to host one of our community members, Annie Wong, as our speaker. She's done amazing, beautiful stop motion work that you can find on Giphy and has done artwork for us in the past as well from our theme on courage and for our giveaway booklets that had some illustrations from her as well. So please help me give a warm welcome to Annie Wong.
That's me. Thank you so much for coming out to see me this morning, you guys. This is a lot more of you than I expected to be out there. So seriously, thanks for waking up and coming out to Creative Mornings. So my name's Annie Wong. At least that's what my civilian name is. My artist name is Headexplodie. And I make a lot of things. I make drawings and paintings. I make photos. Sometimes I combine drawings and paintings on top of photos. Sometimes I make sculptures. And sometimes I animate those sculptures, like in this video, which is called F is for Farts. I'm so glad the audio worked for that. It was like really important. I was like, does the audio work? Because the fart. Sometimes I turn the animations into animated GIFs and GIF stickers. And I'm super happy to be here today speaking on the topic of surreal because surrealism is an important part of the work that I do. I really love to blur the line between imagination and reality. And when I'm making my art, I'm usually asking myself 3 questions. How can I create my own reality? How do I bring my creations to life? And how can I share my reality with the outer world? So, how can I create my own reality? And actually, in order to answer that, I should start with the why. Like, why am I a surrealist rather than a realist? And it's because when I was a small child, I saw the world as very rigid and limited. Curiosity and exploration were undervalued qualities in the culture. And instead, there were all these like rules and expectations that you had to live up to. And because I didn't, I never felt a strong sense of belonging in this reality. So here are some of the labels that I had to grapple with as a child. Shy, Chinese, girl. So shy. I was an introverted kid surrounded by all of these extroverted kids. And this was in the 1980s where like a national conversation about the value of introverted personalities was not a thing. I was just labeled shy and quiet, but I felt like that was an inaccurate representation of who I was. Like I didn't really feel shy necessarily, I just really enjoyed processing the world in my mind. So with this label, I felt misunderstood, and that made it hard to connect with the other kids. Chinese. So my parents are Chinese immigrants, and I am a first-generation American born in South Texas. So you can imagine how many times I was asked the question, where are you from? And when I would answer, I'm from here. You can imagine how many times I was asked the awkward follow-up question, but where are you really from? And I was also made to feel like an outsider by my own relatives because they would often ask me, why can't you speak Chinese? So I felt kind of like a racial imposter. My sister sent me this hilarious meme the other day, and it is perfect for this moment in my slideshow. So, girl. So I was a girl that liked quote unquote boy things like comic books and video games. And by the way, look at how totally psyched I am to have my photo taken here. I'm 13 years old. So I was really jealous of the boys that got to have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys because it came with slime.
Oh no! Raphael's in the clutches of the evil foot fleshomatic torture machine! Will the turtle cycle make it in time? Will Raphael be destroyed by the retro mutagen ooze?
I don't know.
So in 1990, the girls in my school were playing with the New Kids on the Block board game, where you win by collecting the most photos of the guys in the band. And like, don't get me wrong, I loved New Kids on the Block. But was this supposed to be fun? Like, it was very not fun. And I became very aware of like the different cultural expectations for girls and boys. So as you can see, growing up in a reality full of rules and labels was just really frustrating for me. And to be honest, it was very boring and really not fun. But thankfully, creativity ended up saving my life. And I spent a lot of time writing in diaries and drawing in sketchbooks. So as a result, my family and the other kids in school called me the artist. And that was the one label that I felt was accurate. Like, that label was really powerful for me because it meant that I could create something out of nothing. So it was within the pages of those diaries and sketchbooks that I began to build my own reality. And I could create these characters in these worlds that were unbound by the rules of this dimension. And in general, they were just super fun, and I really loved playing in those worlds. So of course, that's all I wanted to do all of the time. I just wanted to play all of the time. And so just like Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, I escaped Texas after high school, and I flew away to Never Never Land, otherwise known as the San Francisco Bay Area. And it really was like Neverland. Because after graduating from art school, I got a job at Children's Fairyland here in Oakland. And for anyone that doesn't know, Fairyland is a 10-acre storybook children's park, and it's kind of like Oakland's own like mini Disneyland. So during my time there, I founded the art and restoration department, where it was our job to go around the park restoring and repainting the fairy tale exhibits that were decades old. And it was in Fairyland that I started to explore the next question. How do I bring my creations to life? And there is no better place to learn how to breathe life into a fictional dimension than the Storybook Puppet Theater at Children's Fairyland. So I became a puppeteer, and so every day at 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock, we'd breathe life into these characters, and the audience would get lost in their world for 10 to 15 minutes. And I would get lost in that world too. And after 7 years of performing classic fairy tales at the Puppet Theater, I decided it was time to learn how to breathe life into my own characters and my own stories. So I went back to school to learn the art of stop-motion animation. And what I especially love about this particular form of animation is that everything is animated by hand, and everything is built by hand. And there is a magic and a charm to stop motion. And it looks like you could just reach out and touch the puppets because they look real, like from our own dimension, but also they're not. Like, we all know what ice cream looks like and what it tastes like, but I want to know what ice cream sounds like. Yay. So after I learned how to breathe life into objects through animation, the world around me became filled with like really delightful surprises. I'd walk around and I'd start seeing characters everywhere. So like this flower became a little singer belting his heart out. And this cactus became a lady getting her hair done at the salon. So one day I found this empty can of Spam by the Oakland estuary, and I wondered how it ended up there. So I imagined a block of spam had just taken off its clothes to go skinny dipping in the estuary. And there he is, so relaxing. And so having this worldview made me really appreciative and mindful of my surroundings because I never knew what surreal surprises would just pop out. And speaking of surprises, so this is just like a weird and silly thing that I made and I uploaded it to the internet. But a year after I shared it, someone messaged me on Instagram to tell me that because of this animated tomato soup gif, she met the love of her life. So of course, when I read that message, I was like, what? Please, tell me more. So one of the places where you can find my gifs is on Tinder. And so she explained that a guy messaged her and she opened up the chat by sending a funny gif. And so she thought, all right, I'll send something funny too. And so she sent my tomato soup. And as it turns out, her guy is like really in love with cooking. And that led to a very, very long conversation. And then that led to the two of them having dinner in July. And they're still together, and they often talk about how the tomato soup lady started their relationship. I'm so glad that she shared that story with me, because sharing is an important component to the work that I do with animation. Because sharing leads to connection. And like, it's all good fun to like build my own reality and breathe life into it, but what is the point if I don't get to share it with anyone? Earlier, I talked about how the rigid words and labels that I grew up with made me feel disconnected and like I didn't belong anywhere. So what if there was a way to talk to people without using labels and words? Or to use words sprinkled in with pictures? Well, you can do that with animated GIFs. Giphy.com is an online database full of searchable GIFs, and that is where a lot of my GIFs live. So when you're on a messaging platform like Instagram or Facebook, Messenger, or Slack, or in the case of the Soup Lady love story, Tinder, you might say hi to someone by typing in a search for hi. And then that someone might search my GIF by typing in a search for oh, hello, to respond. And I think this is an incredibly fun and playful way to communicate. So I started thinking about GIFs as a language. And I started thinking about how language shapes your reality. And I also thought about how sharing and talking openly about your experiences leads to connection with other people. So this led me to creating a project called Overreactions. So Overreactions is a series of animated GIFs which aim to break down the stigma around menstruation. Stigma creates shame, and shame is like such an awful feeling that makes you feel disconnected from other people. So I wanted to expand the visual vocabulary of menstruation so that people could have fun while being encouraged to talk about it. So I illustrated phrases like, I'm on the blob, which is a popular phrase in the UK. My monthly surprise. By the way, I'm now living my childhood dream of playing with slime. Surfing the crimson wave. And for anyone that doesn't know, that is a menstrual cup. And this one is called Overreactions. Like ovaries, overreactions, get it? And this is inspired by like my mood swings, and probably this is what my uterus looks like when I'm having cramps. And shortly after I made this one, I got to beta test it. Okay, so there was a day that I was having like really intense mood swings. And I was like stomping around the apartment and making angry faces at my boyfriend. And then I locked myself in the bathroom and I was just like too ashamed to tell him what was going on with me because of all of the stigma around being like a woman with PMS. Like no one wants to be that woman. So finally, I messaged him from inside of the bathroom. Just a heads up, today is a hard day for me because my PMS is real bad. And then he responded, I know, that's why I got you the snacks and milk tea stuff. Thanks for being open. And then I sent him this GIF. And I actually began to cry tears of relief because it felt like the shame was lifted. And because he's the most awesome partner on the planet, he was compassionate, and he was thankful that I shared my experience with him. Also, having this ridiculous GIF to share, it just made me laugh. And I do believe it can be helpful to utilize humor when trying to process or talk about an experience that you might not feel that great about. So I used to feel kind of like uncomfortable with this particular aspect of my body. But ever since creating this world of like expressive little period characters, I feel a lot more at ease with it. And so by using these GIFs, I wanted other people to also feel free and unashamed to talk about menstruation because it's such a common experience. So you can search the GIFs and you can stick them on top of your own photos and videos and then share them on social media. Just like in this example where a person named Melissa writes, "Been on the bed with the curse of womanhood this evening." And I was also curious what other euphemisms people grew up with outside of the United States. And this person responded, "In India, we use words like chums and the red crow, among other cringy words. Sometimes women just say they're sick or they have it. In fact, a lot of people think that it's impure and unholy, so we're not allowed to talk about it in the open. I believe that calling it what it is one step towards normalizing the idea that women menstruate and that it's a totally normal thing." And while most of the responses have been from women, I was super delighted to read this response from someone named Diego. "Growing up as a boy, it never made sense to me why they would show blue liquid on those girl pads. I honestly thought it was some sort of blue pea girls had." Which obviously distorts reality in so many ways from very early on. Also, this blob is so cute. So I recently started making vinyl stickers of my gift designs so that people could use and share the stickers in real life and not just online. And my favorite comment was from a mother who ordered a set of these uterus stickers for Christmas. And she said, "My daughter just started her period this year, so perfect stocking stuffer." And you know what? When I read that, I cried tears of joy because it just touched my heart so much to think that it was possible for this girl to grow up in an environment where instead of feeling shame about her body, she felt cared for and supported. And is that such a surreal idea? To live in a reality where we celebrate all bodies and their natural, beautiful functions? It shouldn't be. And so this is where I think it can be helpful to think like a surrealist and to basically ask the question, what if things didn't have to be this way? So at the beginning of this talk, I said that I'm asking myself these 3 questions whenever I'm making my art. But really, I'm kind of asking these questions all of the time whenever I'm walking around. And if I shift the questions a little bit, they sort of become like philosophical questions for living in this world. So how can I create my own reality shifts to why create your own reality? And for me, it's because I'm kind of unsatisfied with this one. And I think that nurturing creativity and imagination can offer ways for us to free ourselves from a world that can feel very limited and restricted. How do I bring my creations to life shifts to what happens when the world comes alive for you? It's super easy to get bogged down by our daily routines and constant notifications. But when we can open our senses enough to be mindful of the world around us, then that opens up the potential for experiencing more beauty and more joy and also mystery and surprises. How can I share my reality with the outer world? Shifts to what happens if we start sharing our dreams with each other? I think if we can be vulnerable enough to invite other people into the playground of our imaginations, then we might find that we have more things in common than the outer world would let us think we do. So I didn't want to stand up here today and make this presentation be all like, look at me, look at me, look at all this wacky stuff that I make. Honestly, the most rewarding part of doing the work that I do is being able to share it with other people. And as someone that was like constantly labeled shy as a young girl, it is surreal to me that I would be standing in front of an audience today talking about locking myself in the bathroom while PMSing. But it is because people have been kind enough to comment on the work and to share how they relate to it that I've been able to do this very thing. And I've finally been able to develop a sense of belonging and connectedness with people. And for this, I want to say thank you.